Newcomers to the city of Santa Clarita find a thriving suburb of 150,000 people, 200 in the whole valley. But the numbers are deceiving. To those who've been around a while, like tonight's guest, Santa Clarita is still a small town, and everything is very personal. I'm Leon Warden, and this is Legacy, Santa Clarita's Living History, brought to you by the Santa Clarita Valley Historical Society, the SCV School and Business Alliance, and Valencia Bank and Trust. Tonight's guest really needs no introduction, although there may be a few things you don't know about her. The longest-serving member of Santa Clarita's original 1987 City Council and an ardent community volunteer before that, she's known as Santa Clarita's Mayor Emeritus. Of course, I'm talking about Jo Anne Darcy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I think.
We'll have a lot of fun tonight,
yeah,
but let's go way back.
Oh, way back.
Dredge up some really old stuff and go back to, let's say, the 1950s. You spent 15 years just about at TRW, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. 14.
15 in 14. The 50s and 60s.
Right.
What'd you do there?
Well, we started out with different things. I started when it was Pacific Semiconductors in Culver City. Then it was moved out to Torrance and El Segundo and Lawndale. And they put up 3 new buildings, separated the divisions, and I went with the semiconductor division and the electronics division at various stages in that job.
Did you make semiconductors?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
I could make them, sure. I used to cut them up half, too, and dissect them and do readings on them. And then we got the Minuteman program, and I took great care. We do 90-day readings and sometimes 6 months.
Well, I said a minute ago that there were some things that people don't know about you. That's an example of one.
And then I went to developmental lab, and then I went into the quality control division, and then went into executive. I went to college I worked at night, and then went to college during the day when I could, and then when I changed roles and worked during the day.
What did you study in college?
Executive stuff, administrative, public affairs and administrative assistant job. I guess that was what they'd call it today. I kind of was a jack of all trades. I did everything that came up or they asked me to.
Now you did that until, 1966, something happened and that kind of changed your life, I guess you could say.
Actually the end of 65, actually in May, the end of May in 65, my husband had a major heart attack. Major.
That's Curt.
And yes, Curtis, and he had to go on medical leave and then couldn't go back to work at the job because he did partly sales, and that means getting in and out of your car 150 times a day or more, and it was too much strain on his heart.
Now he worked for Budweiser, right?
He worked for several breweries. Meyer Brewing, I think, was the first one, and then he was with Pabst Blue Ribbon, and then went on to Budweiser, which he really preferred.
Now, you ended up coming out to Acton then, 1967. He did?
Yes,
Why Acton?
I was still working, and I had to go to work during the day, and he was getting kind of bored at home, and he wanted to go see this friend of his in Acton that used to be the fire chief in Culver City.
Okay.
So we knew him as a neighbor in the next block, and his children used to play with mine, and they had a nice pool, so we shared that once in a while. And he went up there, and he got the opportunity to meet the former owner of what was the 49er saloon. And he had put it up for sale. It had been closed for about a year and a half. And Keith was always dabbling, that's the fireman, the ex.
Right.
He was dabbling in real estate, so he was trying to make my husband a deal he couldn't forget, I guess he did, because my husband was gung-ho on buying it. And he thought it would give him another job to do, not real drastic, but he could do something else and be the owner of a bar.
Running a bar, running your own business was something else to do that wasn't too demanding?
Yeah, well, the demanding part was my end of it, chief cook and bottle washer. I never knew I'd get into that.
You left TRW then?
Yes, I did. I retired too early because I didn't ever get a pension out of it. But I had to. I couldn't do that drive. I tried it 3 months and it about killed me.
You moved out to Acton.
Yes.
And I understand that the 49er, well, now I guess it's been renamed Sutter's Mill.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
We named it Darcy's 49er Saloon. That's
the original
name.
Now, the building that's there now, that's the one that's got the Sutter's Mill sign on it.
Right.
That was the same building that that was Darcy's 49er.
Right.
But You were telling me that wasn't always the original 49er?
No, it wasn't. They had a little bar in front in the old days. It was well over 100 and some years old. And an old-time basement downstairs. We used to take our supplies and put them down there. And it...
The building had a basement in Acton?
Yeah. And it was a little two-bedroom, small house. Made a good real estate office later, too, but we lived there, my husband and I, and two of the children. And the other two, we rented the house next door because they were in high school. And
So the original 49er from 100 years ago or whatever was now a house, and you lived in it? Okay.
we had to fix it up and fix the bar and the restaurant up severely because it was a mess.
Been down for a year and a half.
Yeah, but it was, you
Took a
know,
while
they
to
had
get
bikers in there. I guess they'd had a blast party and they rode all over everything and literally ruined everything too, I guess. So we had to fix it all up.
So you and Darcy, his friends called him Darcy. I remember those days.
Yeah.
You and Darcy ran the place together. Yourselves. Did you have employees or?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
At one time we had 6 employees.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was a restaurant at the same time?
We started out that way. It was, you know, people were they didn't have a place to go for breakfast. So we started opening at 8 and then stayed open. It got later and later because they wanted to come in. We had a night shift going up in Palmdale. They came down there to drink, the ones that lived in Acton. And we couldn't get them out of there before 2 a.m. So we decided we'd just keep that the hours for a while.
Would you work 7 days a week?
Although we did start out keeping it closed on Monday so I could clean, you know, I'd scrub that big floor and do the catch-up work and clean out that big vent over the grill, which I did by hand.
You remember some of the customers?
Oh yeah, I remember old Tom with the white beard. And old Tom was a character. He'd be the first one in there in the morning and the last one out at night. And he must have drank 50 cups of coffee a day on me. But he could tell you stories, and I wish I had, you know, my steno pad and could take them down because they were very interesting. He used to be in an old mining building, a little old shack up in the hills, but finally decided to put together what he could, and he bought a little mobile unit, single thing he dragged along with his car, and that's where he stayed, on my parking lot for years.
Turkey races.
Turkey races. Well, we didn't have turkey races. We had turkeys carried in the parade. The little old ladies would come out with their turkey on a leash and carry them, and they'd dress them up with little bonnets and things and strut down the street on July 4th.
But I heard something about a turkey war.
Oh, we had a turkey war, yeah.
What was that?
We got into a kind of a hissing match with Dick Whittinghill on the radio station, and he was big in those days, and he covered all of that Santa Clarita and Antelope Valley area on the radio. And he started out, he talked about Acton, and he said, "Who ever heard of Acton? Where in the hell is Acton?" And so that started it. Some of the guys, some of the old women and men were, yeah. And just like the old, remember the old bumper stickers for Saugus?
Yeah.
Where in the hell is Saugus?
Yeah.
Right next to Newhall, eat turkey.
That was a while ago. Yeah, I remember that.
I had one once. I lost it since.
No, sorry, the turkey war.
The turkey war, yes. We got into this hissing match with the radio commentator, and he was famous. And he said, "Let's go down and we'll have a war, but it'll be, at the end, we'll kiss and make up, you know. And you have to figure out a gift to give me, and we'll figure out something to give you, and we'll have a regular war." So we lined up some old tanks we had, and an old cannon we bored. And they all came out and dressed up in their old uniforms from the service and came marching down the street. Oh, it must have been around 400 people doing it. And it was a gas. They built this big stand for him to get onto, and then they lifted me up. And I was supposed to be President Peanuts, representing the woman form of it. And I had on these old overalls and peanuts around my head and this straw hat. And we carried on a conversation. And then they started fake shooting, and then the Air Force Condors came over. And it was a riot. It was really funny.
Who won the war?
It was a draw.
It was a draw.
Yeah, and then we went for a peacemaking effort. We went and buried the gold-plated horse road apples and buried that and turkey bones.
Gold-plated horse apples?
We sprayed him with gold. That was our peace offering to him. And he gave us a peace pipe, an old peace pipe he had, and we buried it in the ground, and it's in the lot next door.
Buried it too?
Yes.
Still out there?
The whole thing, it must be. But it was fun. It really was fun. I mean, cute.
Was there filming that used to go on there?
Yes, we did a lot of films, especially in 1969 on. We did Barnaby Jones series, The $6 Million Man, the FBI story. We did a lot of the $6 Million Man. Got to meet all the stars. They came in and had a little tippy-too and with us, on us. And Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. was just an absolute prince. He was a wonderful man to talk to. Oh, and we had a lot of other history too. We had the ceremony at the cemetery every Halloween. These psychics would come in, come in, and psychics will line up to get in there and get the vibes, and they'd sit in a big circle and they'd all meditate, and people came around for miles to see that. They'd watch them.
Did you see any manifestations? Or
no, I never saw any. I'm too busy working.
Too busy working the bar, getting people primed up to go see them. The visions. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Any other memories stand out in your mind about Acton?
Oh yeah, we'd get snow about 6 days a year there, and I remember once we had snow 3 days in a row. And we couldn't get in or out, and everything was blocked off with the snow. We had the best poker game going you ever saw.
Now, was Acton considered more Santa Clarita or more Antelope Valley?
Well, it was both. At that time, it was considered part of Santa Clarita Valley. And then that was changed later, in the mid-'70s, I believe.
Now, this is coming on the time when you ended up selling the 49er.
Yes.
Why'd you get out of it?
Famous shootout. Yes, we had a surprise attack by the Vagos group, and they had a run-in with the local gasoline owner, and he didn't give them gas or air for their tires. He didn't like bikers, and he made no cover-up about it at all. Ordered them off his property, didn't even want to give them gas. And they didn't forget it. They came back that night, and it was Saturday night. And that was the night we had the Western bands, Friday and Saturday night. We had the Western bands.
And this was in December of 1972, I think, right?
Yeah, December 2nd. And we had just finished the decorations up in the ceiling and everything for Christmas. I had the tree up even early. And then they came all in. There was 27 of them. And they were dressed like you and I with their women. And were looking for Tommy Driscoll. And they found him sitting at the bar. And they went over and talked to him and asked him to come outside with them, and he wouldn't go. And he just said, "Leave me alone, I don't like bikers, just get off my back." So they went to the back of the room where the pool table was, and they were talking about it. Well, his friend was in the restaurant that night, and he was an ex-sheriff from Arizona, tough guy, big guy. And he had some words with the bikers that came up to his table. An argument ensued, and they told him he couldn't leave, and he had his wife with him. He said, he got up and he said, "My wife is going, and I'll follow you soon, Susie," something like that he said to her. And they said, "No, we want to talk to you." Well, he sat down again, and then I don't know what the biker said to him, but he got up abruptly, and it scared him, and then we heard a crash. And they took one of the beer steins and hit him over the head with it. And it was a heavy bottom, and he didn't flinch. He didn't even move. But the guy that was sitting at the bar that owned the gas station had a antique pistol in his belt, and he pulled it out and shot in the floor, saying, "What do you think you're doing? Get out of here, you scum," stuff like that. And then it started. All hell broke loose. We saw more guns and knives that you ever saw so quickly in your life. And it got scary. Panic broke out. I couldn't get the people to calm down. We had both the front door and the back door open. My husband had run around quickly to do that. But they pulled our phone out behind the bar and the payphone in the front, so we couldn't get help that easy. And the bikers did not want to hurt customers. They just wanted that Mr. Driscoll.
Right.
And they made that very clear because he was one of the first that they shot at, and then the ex-sheriff they shot at. And then a couple customers got ricochet bullets from the beam ceiling, came down and went through one of their arms, and one got it through the fingers. And then there was another man hit, just a light graze, fortunately for him.
5 people were injured.
5 people. And one man took...
Nobody died?
No. One man was temporarily paralyzed, though, and that was the ex-sheriff. He was paralyzed and went on full disability and everything, and the insurance company came around and told me that they were hauling him back into court because he was committing a fraud by lying about his injury. that he was able to walk, and they took pictures of him in his backyard playing basketball with his kids, things like that. So that's how he ended up. The others all recovered. Tommy was still living there with his gas station when I moved away, and then I heard he later retired in Northern California.
Business died after that.
Oh, it was terrible. We lost a lot of business. Like one waitress stayed with me until she'd stay until 7 o'clock at night. And then I'd do it with, Darcy would come in and we'd try to keep it open until 9. But then what saved us, I got the linemen that used to come through there and do the overhead power lines. They were putting in those lines for LA City. They got a renewal on their contract. They came back and they were marvelous tippers and good spenders. I mean, but they wanted in the contract that I would feed them 3 times a day. So back to being open 7 days a week. And they could party half the night too after they got off work and get up the next morning at 5 and feel great. I don't know how they did it.
You did sell or get out of
yes,
the 49er
we sold it.
anyway.
We lost on it, but I had to get away. Darcy had after the shooting, he had a heart attack again.
Really?
From his original one that put him out of work. And then he got cancer. They discovered cancer of the prostate, or thought he had it. They did operate and found they had none there. But all those things took their toll on him. And then when I put it up for sale, it almost split our family in half too, because the one son went and joined the Air Force at that time. That was Gary, the oldest. And then the others were trying to help me what they could. But after the shooting, we were doing shotgun patrol in both of our houses and in the restaurant. And that was a nightmare. I mean, I was a nervous wreck, I'll kid you not.
Well, you found some peace a little further to the southwest.
Right, yes. I was asked to be considered for assistant manager of the Chamber of Commerce. At that time, it was Newhall Saugus Valencia Chamber.
Dick Millar was...
Dick Millar was their president coming in. Walt Black was the outgoing president.
Okay.
And I met everybody.
Now, was Jerry Ann Bowman working there?
She was, but then left right away. And another girl came in. I can't even remember her name now. But she was doing secretarial work, and that's what I did there to start with. But then, had I looked at the budget, I'd realized we were almost broke. So then you have to really get into it with fundraising, trying to get new members, and that's how you did it.
How many members were there when you got there?
When I got there was about 70. When I left, there was about 240. Which, in those days, it was good, you know, for that.
Sure.
And then they started upping the dues and got more high power. But I brought in the early days, I brought in some of the big ones.
How long was it before you worked your way up to the executive director
The next year.
position?
Yeah. They didn't pay a lot of money in those days, and there were no benefits. So I think I was as lucky to get it. They thought, you know, they were giving me the best deal they could, and they did. I mean, it wasn't. I had some money left from the bar, so we didn't go into buying a house right away.
Was the chamber in the Pardee house at that time? Or?
When I first went to work, it was on in the Plaza Posada in the second floor office.
Okay. Plaza Posada on Lyons Avenue. It would have been new.
Yeah. And then Dick Millar heard that the Boys Club was going to be up, and that he went, talked it over with me. We went over and talked to them to get it for $1 a year if we would fix it up. Well, I started raising money, getting people interested in it, and we did pretty good. I think I raised about $15,000, which was pretty good in those old days.
Sure.
And so we got the Veilleuses and some other people that would come and do some part-time painting and put. We had the roof done by a company, and then Veilleuses put in the carpeting. They even provided it. They were real good people. And then Darcy rebuilt the kitchen into more like a bar because we were doing mixers there then. Of course, you know, I had to start a mixer there. First mixer I had was a rock mixer. That was a blast. It really was.
A rock mixer?
A rock mixer. Everybody had to bring a rock or you couldn't get in. And we had all sizes of rocks because I wanted to put something in the landscaping in the front. And this
That's like Rock Band.
Yeah. We had a few of those. But, you know, believe it or not, we had the old timers. Merle Haggard sang a few times free, just walked in and took over. And we had our band, the Jameson Band was our regular hired band. And we had a couple of old timers from Santa Clarita there that came up to sit in and didn't charge us anything, just wanted to be part of it. And it was fun. It really was.
You stayed there till about 1980.
No, not up in Acton.
No.
No,
with
the chamber.
with
Yes,
the
and
chamber.
that was another opportunity. My life has been full of those things, I guess. And I got to meet Mike Antonovich when he was running for office. And I was chairman of the Public Affairs and Legislative Committee, and we were trying to train people about legislation because a lot didn't even know what it meant. But the chamber in those days was more like a quasi-government. Nobody else had any knowledge or power, I guess, to do very much.
Right.
And so we got different people to come to that and talk about things that legislative affected. We got the legislators, that's for sure, and they were all nice, you know, all through that time. But Mike met me. He came to one of my forums for the legislative thing, and I made it funny. Consumer Affairs was part of that too, and I made it funny how you could get taken, and I'd say right, and it was wrong, of course, dead wrong. And people were agreeing when I said no, all of those are wrong. You know, we made him laugh, and Mike liked that. And then he called me. Oh, and then he came out a couple more times, and Connie, I knew Connie, and she said, well, you should take him around and introduce him if he comes out. And I did that with Baxter Ward too, and he was running again. Mike was running against him. I didn't want to get into that battle, but you know, you're courteous. You should be courteous anyway, and I did that. And Mike liked the area, liked the people real well. And he called me the Saturday after he got elected and asked me if I'd consider working for him. He'd like to interview me, and they had a couple people down there. I was just ready to go on vacation. I hadn't had one for ages, and we did. I gave it up, and I went down with my husband's consent to be interviewed. And he interviewed me for like 2.5 hours. It's supposed to be like, she said, oh, it wouldn't be more than half an hour.
Right.
He asked me everything. Everything about the community, about the people. And the gal that was doing a lot of the interviewing too was later his chief deputy, Kathleen Crow.
And of course, Mike was a Republican. He'd been in the Assembly.
Yes.
You'd been involved in Republican Party stuff.
Yes, from Culver City, a little bit, not major stuff, but I got involved when we moved to Acton a little bit more, because you know you get to know everybody, and the legislators would all come in the restaurant, you know, and they'd have coffee or have a piece of pie with us, and he was just like old folks having your relatives over for dinner.
Yeah.
It's that comfortable.
How popular was Mike here, you know, back then in the early '80s? I mean, was your job kind of to be his voice and?
No. Oh, you mean when he got elected?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I was his right-hand person out here. I mean, I'm the one that covered the forums and the busy meetings that he couldn't make. I even got in some political debates, which I didn't want at all, but his chief deputy didn't show up, so I had to take him on, and I got blasted a few times, but we learned.
What was it like in '87 when cityhood came along and you decided to run for city council? Was that ever a conflict between city and county?
Not really. Mike was pretty good about that. He believed in self-government, and he didn't stand in our way, although I can tell you that LAFCO did, as we all have the scars for that. But, and maybe we were a little bit too mouthy or too forceful in those days when we met with them, but God, we were fighting for our own out here. Yeah. And we knew approximately how much money was being sifted out of this area that we should be spending with getting things the people needed out here. And that's what we did, or tried to do.
You know, we're almost out of time, and I want to get to a couple of things where you've been involved in so much, in starting the wine auction to help the senior center,
still doing
and the Meals on Wheels program, right? And so many
violence.
things. Friends of the libraries out here. You've had the Canyon Country Jo Anne Darcy Library named for you and opened in 2001, or did it open this year? 2002? I can't remember. But a few months ago. Western Walk of Stars in downtown Newhall.
And that's another one that was started way back from scratch to have our own Western
You started that
walk.
with Milt Diamond.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and Judy and Bob Martin and Virgil Saunders were the top, and then there was a Jim Ory involved too.
Right.
And of course Cliffy Stone. Cliffy Stone is the one that really got us some good PR in the beginning throughout the other areas.
I think it was 1980, right?
In the 81,
when it started
81 was our first program. And a predecessor to that was what Dick Millar started in 1977. He had Western lunches. And that started, we got to meet the old-time stars, and they were old-time stars out here. And so we invited some of them back to the Walk of Stars, and they loved it.
And you've had everybody from Bill Hart to John Wayne and
Oh,
Roy
yes.
Rogers in the
lineup.
street on San Fernando Road, and now Jo Anne Darcy
Yes.
in 2001
Well,
got your own plaque for Lifetime Achievement.
Lifetime achievement, not because I'm a movie star. Thank goodness.
But kind of a capper on a long history of community service to this valley.
Yeah, but I loved it.
14
really
years
did.
on the city council, longest serving person, just April 23rd, 2002, not too very long ago, was the adios from the city council.
Last week.
It's time to say goodnight. For Legacy, Santa Clarita's Living History, I'm Leon Warden. Thank you.
So many emotions have passed through my life. So many tributes I've been given. Not deserving, I don't think, but I have been a part of those organizations and those things that happened. And when I look at our city today, I realized what a great thing happened when we did become a city. It is nothing but great. All the people that came with us and stayed with us time and time again, followed us to meetings, demonstrations, giving work on their own for thousands of hours from our volunteers. I do love you all. You're part of my life. You're part of me. And I want you to feel that way about your city, because that's what it means. It's a love. It's a love affair for people. And it'll always be like that if you continue to help.